forum, themed Strong Value Chain and Value Chains for Increased Inter-Africa Trade, embodies our continent's commitment to an integrated African market. I do not need to labor much convincing you of what the AfCFTA holds for Africa, because the SG Wamukele has already done it. But suffice to re-emphasize that this single market of almost 2 billion people come 2035 has the potential to create tremendous wealth while unlocking industrialization on our continent, hence the pertinence of discussing value chains and supply chains here today. To achieve this, we must enhance the private sector's role and create conducive environment for our youth and women-led enterprises, encouraging innovation and growth. The private sector, as Africa's growth engine, is essential in enabling smooth cross-border trade, promoting seamless goods movement, and fostering opportunities for many SMEs. The question remains how easy it is for wafanya biashara, the traders we are talking about, to move across borders. The African Union Protocol on Free Movement of Persons was also signed here, a twin instrument to the AfCFTA, but it has not gained the same momentum. Though 33 member states have signed the protocol today, about 27 here in Kigali in 2018, only 4 have ratified it, which is less than 15 we need for the protocol to enter into force. I congratulate Rwanda, Your Excellency President Paul Kagame, for your leadership, because you are among the 4 who have ratified. Others being Niger, Mali, and Sao Tome and Principe. This forum, therefore, uniting governments, businesses, and civil society, should address the structural challenges that limit intra-Africa trade, free movement of persons being among chief of them. Robust values and supply chains, coupled with improved trade financing, transportation and logistics infrastructure, as well as ease the regulatory complexity, are fundamental to achieving AfCFTA's vision. Recent global events have underscored our supply chain's vulnerability, stressing the need for stronger intra-African networks. The African Union Commission is advancing the AfCFTA's goals by enhancing trade facilitation, sector-specific development, and value chain integration. We are focusing on critical sectors: agriculture for food security and export opportunities, pharmaceuticals for health sovereignty and resilience, and of course, digital space for seamless cross-border trade and inclusivity. Your Excellencies, as I conclude, the vision of One Africa market hinges on strong public-private partnership and sustained infrastructure investment, from roads and ports to energy. We also need regulatory frameworks that simplify cross-border operations for businesses. Our discussions here today are a call to action for public and private sectors, including our financial institutions, to align their priorities, grow the synergies, foster innovation, and ensure inclusivity and sustainability. Tujenge Africa Pamoja is not just a slogan. It's a call for collaboration, bearing in mind that divided we fall, united we stand. AfCFTA is a beacon of hope, poised to transform Africa into an economic powerhouse, I'm confident that our dialogue here today will spark deeper cooperation and transformative change. Let us work together, governments and businesses, to strengthen value chains, build resilient supply systems, and ensure AfCFTA's promise is realized for all Africans. I will leave you with this quote from my president, His Excellency Paul Kagame. It is not complete until we do it together. I thank you.
A special thank you to the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Monique Inzaza Baganwa. Thank you so much, Madam, and we are grateful for your calls to action. Ladies and gentlemen, moving into the thematic video of why we are here. Dare to invent the future of the AfCFTA. How and why is in this video. Take a look.
Have you ever imagined what it truly means to unify a continent? What it means to live in Africa where no one is left behind? This isn't a dream, it's our reality. We are daring to invent our future where our borders are invisible, divisions are obsolete, where we move as one to our own beat. Our products will find markets with each other. We will settle payments swiftly and securely. Our services will move across borders as easily as our ideas. Our businesses will scale with ease. Our women and girls will thrive. Breaking barriers and leading the church on innovation. Our youth will unite across borders with seamless travel. And yes, they will lead, not just sit at the proverbial table. As we said, this is no longer a dream. In 2018, in this very room, we united to rewrite the rules of trade. We have since established the rules of origin and the Pan-African payments and settlement system, which are critical for fostering intra-Africa trade. Initiatives like the AfCFTA guided trade initiatives have already started paving the way for tangible trade across borders, including Cameroon, Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, and Rwanda. We are creating a market of innovation, growth, and opportunity, one where every African can rise to their fullest potential. AfCFTA is more than an agreement. It's the embodiment of Africa's resilience, unity, and vision. We dare to invent the future, and we have succeeded. This is our journey. This is your journey. Let's own it together and continue to create the Africa we have always dreamt of.
It is indeed time for the AfCFTA. Another round of applause for the AfCFTA. And now it's time to receive the remarks of the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Eswatini. Please welcome Honorable Russell Dlamini.
Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Rwanda, Mr. Paul Kagame. Your Excellency, the former President of the Republic of Niger and champion of the AfCFTA, Mr. Mahamadou Issoufou. His Excellency, the Secretary General of AfCFTA Secretariat, Mr. Wamgele Mene, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I bring with me warm regards from His Majesty King Mswati III and the head of state of the Kingdom of Eswatini, Her Majesty the Queen Mother, the government and the people of the Kingdom of Eswatini. His Majesty would have loved to be part of this event, but due to other commitments, he couldn't attend, but has graciously appointed me to represent him. I would particularly like to express our collective gratitude to His Excellency Mr. Paul Kagame and the government of Rwanda for hosting the second edition of AfCFTA Business Forum, rebranded the Biashara Africa 2024, a landmark initiative under our African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. I acknowledge the esteemed business leaders and all key stakeholders in African trade and economic integration who have joined us here for this very important initiative. Your presence underscores the collective commitment to our shared goals of building the Africa we want. Special thanks to His Excellency Mr. Wamgele Mene, the Secretary General of AfCFTA, and the entire staff of the Secretariat, whose tireless efforts have been instrumental in driving our regional integration agenda and making this event possible. I also wish to thank Mr. Mene for the support he has shown in ensuring that the Kingdom of Eswatini is well positioned to fully participate and reap the benefits that the agreement promises to offer to African nations. Our convening here, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, here in Kigali today for the second edition of the Business Forum marks a crucial step in our journey towards economic integration in Africa. Reflecting on our path, we recall the historic milestones that have shaped the African Continental Free Trade Area, from the seeds planted by the Abuja Treaty to the comprehensive framework established by the Boosting Intra-African Trade Initiative that culminated to the historic signing of the AfCFTA agreement in 2018. Envisioned by our founding fathers in 1963 in Addis Ababa and further embodied in our ambitious Agenda 2063, these efforts represent the realization of a long-held dream to unify our continent in many fronts. Despite these accomplishments, we must confront a stark reality. Africa accounts for only 3% of global trade, and intra-Africa trade stands at a mere 15%. These figures are not just statistics, they are a call to action. They highlight immense untapped potential that our continent holds and underscore the urgent need for transformative solutions. Today, our resolve is further tested by the triple C's: COVID, conflict, and climate change. The COVID-19 pandemic devastated our economies and disrupted value chains, exposing the perils of vaccine nationalism and the need for resilient local production capacities. Conflict from the ongoing strife in some parts of our continent and beyond continue to hinder our progress, both in terms of economic growth and social stability. Moreover, the calamities, climate change that manifest in floods and other natural hazards continue to challenge our ability, sustainable development, and growth in the economy, in the continent. The operationalization of the AfCFTA now stands as a source of pride and hope for the continent. According to studies by the World Bank, if properly implemented, the agreement could lift 30 million people out of extreme poverty. This landmark initiative holds the key to unlocking new opportunities for our young people and women, fostering job creation, promoting regional and continental value chains in sectors such as manufacturing, agriculture, and thus enhancing value addition across our diverse economies. In recognition of this potential, I pledge to rally my fellow leaders at the upcoming African Union Summit to champion the full and faithful implementation of the AfCFTA agreement. We must expedite the conclusion of negotiations on critical sectors such as automobiles and textiles. I therefore urge those countries that have not yet deposited their instruments of ratification of the agreement to do so without delay. Let us move forward together with renewed vigor and a shared commitment to transform the promise of the AfCFTA into tangible prosperity for all Africans. Our continent's future hinges on our unity and our ability to fulfill the promises made to our people. Utilizing the vast natural resources of our countries is essential for stimulating economic development. We must use these resources more efficiently and collaborate on sharing expertise and technology to mitigate foreign exploitation. Such measures are vital for poverty alleviation, job creation, and technological advancement. Enhanced cooperation among African countries is crucial to drive our continent's development towards economic independence. And the AfCFTA is a significant step in that direction. Your Excellencies, I hope that this second edition of the AfCFTA Business Forum will be a tremendous success and will contribute significantly to Rwanda's inclusive and sustainable economic growth and that of the continent. There shall never be a moment again to revolutionize trade in Africa like now. Let us all seize this opportunity and be part of this wonderful journey. In conclusion, Eswatini promises to be amongst those who want to dare to invent the future of the AfCFTA. The Kingdom has already declared readiness to trade under the AfCFTA and has joined the Guided Trade Initiative, which will pave the way for Eswatini traders to actively participate in the African commercial activities. We look forward to receiving the Secretariat in the Kingdom of Eswatini to continue with engagement under this initiative. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, Kingdom of Eswatini. We thank you very much for your words. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have two more very important speeches. Mesdames et messieurs, je vous présente l'ancien président de la République du Niger et champion de l'AfCFTA. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the former president of the Republic of Niger and the AfCFTA champion. Please welcome His Excellency Mahamadou Issoufou. Mesdames et messieurs, je vous présente son Excellence Mahamadou Issoufou.
Excellence, Monsieur Paul Kagame, président de la République du Rwanda, Monsieur le Premier ministre de Swatini, Madame la vice-présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Monsieur Wankele Mene, secrétaire général de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, Monsieur le directeur de CDC Afrique, Mesdames et Messieurs, pays le plus propre d'Afrique, doté d'un régime politique stable et connaissant une forte croissance économique, le Rwanda nous montre chaque jour que l'Afrique que nous voulons, celle de l'agenda 2063, est possible. Une Afrique libre et souveraine. Une Afrique en paix. Une Afrique qui compte dans le concert des nations. Permettez-moi de saluer et de féliciter le président Paul Kagame artisan de cette transformation du pays de mille colonies, devenu désormais celui de mille opportunités. Je voudrais également saisir l'occasion, Monsieur le Président, pour vous féliciter pour la confiance que le peuple rwandais vous a récemment renouvelée. Je tiens à vous exprimer nos sincères vœux de réussite. Mesdames et Messieurs, il ne nous reste que 39 ans pour réussir la mise en œuvre effective de l'agenda 2063, adopté par l'Union africaine à l'occasion de son sommet de janvier 2013. Quel bel hommage au père fondateur. Si, à l'occasion du premier centenaire de la création de l'organisation continentale, nous arrivions à en réaliser la vision, celle de la Renaissance africaine, et les projets et programmes, dont ceux du premier plan décennal 2014-2023, ont fait l'objet récemment d'un bilan de mise en œuvre. Ces projets phares sont notamment la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, la stratégie africaine des produits de base, le barrage hydroélectrique d'Inga, le marché unique du transport aérien, le réseau continental de trains à grande vitesse, le réseau électronique panafricain, faire taire les armes, la libre circulation des personnes et des biens et les institutions financières panafricaines. Parmi ces projets et programmes, la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine occupe une place centrale. C'est le projet qui enregistre le score de mise en œuvre le plus élevé grâce au dynamisme, à l'esprit d'initiative et à l'entre-gens de l'équipe du secrétariat dirigée par M. Wankele Mene, que je vous demande d'applaudir s'il vous plaît. Depuis la signature à Kigali, en mars 2018 de l'accord, il a créé, et son entrée en vigueur constatée à Niamey en 2019, que de chemin parcouru. Après 5 ans de mise en œuvre, nous pouvons affirmer que nous sommes sur la bonne voie, à l'image du Rwanda, qui s'achemine d'un pas déterminé vers l'émergence. Depuis Kigali et Niamey, peu d'obstacles franchis. Avec l'adoption des protocoles sur l'investissement, sur la concurrence, sur les droits de propriété intellectuelle, sur le commerce numérique et sur les femmes et les jeunes dans le commerce. Ainsi, le cadre institutionnel de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine a connu un renforcement et des améliorations inédites. Ces différents instruments viennent renforcer et compléter l'accord cadre et les protocoles sur le commerce des marchandises, le commerce des services et les règles et procédures pour le règlement des différends. Mesdames et Messieurs, la ZLECAf, il faut toujours le rappeler, constitue un marché de 1,4 milliard de consommateurs aujourd'hui, qui passera à 1,7 milliard en 2030, 2,4 milliards en 2050 et environ 3 milliards en 2063. Il s'agit là d'un immense potentiel de croissance économique si nous arrivions à relever le défi de la transition démographique, en particulier ceux de l'éducation, de la formation, de la santé et de la création d'emplois. Cela suppose que soient levés également les défis de la gouvernance, de la paix et de la stabilité. Ce formidable capital humain et les abondantes ressources naturelles dont dispose le continent constituent des bases solides de son émergence. L'Afrique a le potentiel pour devenir une puissance mondiale si ce potentiel est rationnellement exploité. Cela suppose une mise en œuvre cohérente de l'agenda 2063 du niveau national au niveau continental en passant par le niveau régional. Cela suppose une mobilisation collective, notamment celle des femmes et des jeunes. Cela suppose en particulier que nous surmontions, entre autres, les défis de l'échange inégal. Mesdames et messieurs, l'échange inégal a toujours été un instrument d'appauvrissement de notre continent. Entre 1997 et 2007, par exemple, l'Afrique a perdu, selon la Banque mondiale, 120% de son PIB du fait de l'échange illégal. Aussi, l'Afrique doit-elle tout mettre en œuvre pour mettre fin à son statut de simple réservoir de matières premières et d'importateur de produits finis. Pour ce faire, le secrétariat de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, que je félicite pour ses multiples initiatives, en application des dispositions pertinentes de l'accord, a conçu une stratégie de chaîne de valeur pour une industrialisation de l'Afrique, la stimulation des échanges interafricains et la conquête des marchés extérieurs. Cette stratégie
se concentre à court terme sur la souveraineté et la sécurité alimentaire, la mise en place d'une industrie pharmaceutique et d'automobile, ainsi que le transport et la logistique. Il est regrettable que des projets, comme celui du réseau continental du train à grande vitesse, du grand barrage d'Inga, n'aient pas connu la mise en œuvre qu'il mérite. Pourtant, l'Afrique a les coûts de transport et de l'énergie les plus élevés du monde, ce qui réduit la compétitivité de son économie. Paradoxalement, alors que les coûts de l'hydroélectricité sont faibles, l'Afrique n'en exploite que 55% de son potentiel. Mesdames et messieurs, les investissements et le financement constituent un autre défi à relever. L'Afrique ne reçoit qu'une part marginale des investissements directs étrangers mondiaux, à peine 5,2% en 2022. Plus grave, pour la plupart des pays du continent, l'accès au marché financier international est soit impossible, soit très coûteux. Le gouvernement africain paye 5 à 16% sur les obligations des États à 10 ans, contre, pour d'autres pays, des taux d'intérêt proches de zéro. Le coût élevé des emprunts sur les marchés financiers se traduit par une forte absorption des recettes budgétaires des États par le service de la dette, faisant peu de marge au financement d'investissements, exposant par ailleurs les pays à des risques de surendettement. D'instruments de développement, la dette devient une source d'appauvrissement. L'architecture financière internationale est inéquitable. Elle doit être réformée. Cette réforme ne sera pas l'œuvre de ceux dont elle sert les intérêts. Elle ne peut être que le résultat d'une lutte. La revendication du droit à un développement souverain auquel aspirent de plus en plus de pays constitue une opportunité pour participer efficacement à ce combat. L'Afrique doit renforcer les institutions financières panafricaines existantes comme la BAD et AfricXimbank et accélérer la mise en place de celles qui sont prévues par les différents traités, notamment celui d'Abuja. En particulier, la mise en place de la Banque africaine d'investissement et du Fonds monétaire africain doit être accélérée. Mesdames et messieurs, comme vous le savez, le commerce guidé constitue une autre initiative de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine dont il faut se féliciter. Cette initiative est conçue pour être un catalyseur pour la facilitation des échanges entre les États parties. Lancée en octobre 2022, elle concernait au départ 7 États, à savoir le Cameroun, l'Égypte, le Ghana, le Kenya, l'île Maurice, le Rwanda et la Tanzanie,
Plus tard, rejoint par la Tunisie. Cette phase pilote était essentiellement réservée au commerce des marchandises. L'évaluation de cette phase
capacity building for the women to be able to take an opportunity from that point to the end.
Love it.
Where we are closing deals and making this AfCFTA come alive.
Thank you. So Claire, given that you are part of this network, you've heard it all, we've discussed it, and even outside of here, you hear the discussions around where it pertains to women in intra-Africa trade. How can we then collectively take advantage of the HerAfCFTA framework?
So we can look at the whole concept of AfCFTA and either look at it as a prosperity initiative for Africa, or we can keep complaining. And I can show you that if you keep looking for problems, you will find a myriad of problems. So the question is, what next? Think her facility, her network, her knowledge. The issues are the same across Africa. Logistics, name it, finance, but her AfCFTA is bringing all of this to the center, and we're saying, let's collaborate. Strategic partnerships. Let's ensure that for every time that we go out to support women, we are leveraging the power of the established networks. The things we need are already on ground. They are not necessarily perfect. The question is, how do we run with what is available? And so what I can say as a closing is this: Africa will fix Africa. Nobody's coming to save us.
Yes.
Women, to a very large extent, are the transformers of Africa. Women will transform this continent. Trade, as a concept in itself, will empower and provide jobs. So for me, backward integration, if we're going to be the powerhouse that we are supposed to be as a continent, because we have the youngest continent in the world, we need to start to look at the workforce. We need to start to strengthen our young people, because we cannot trade without the numbers. And so let's go back to the drawing board. Let's go back to UNDP. Go to the UNDP offices in your country, those of you. Mention to them that Madam Ahuna has created a concept, her AfCFTA. We want to know what you are doing about it. Whether we like it or not, come 2025, we are all going to congregate, and we're also going to discuss how we can break those barriers that limit women. Again, Africa will fix Africa. We cannot keep waiting for other people to come and help us. And this is the opportunity for us to push that narrative. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. DJ, my music again. As we about to leave the stage, please put your hands together for our last speaker, Miss Claire Henshaw, National Program Specialist and Trade Focal Point, UNDP Nigeria. And you heard from Mr. Kundo Chido, CEO and founder of Canal+. You also heard from Miss Mona Kadiri, CEO Club Afrique Development, and you heard from Miss Olatokunbo Ige, who is the founder of Togo Mall, Miss Yeginde Eriko, who's the Director General, Women's Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture of Nigeria, and of course we had Miss Happiness Abisai, CEO, AJ Tanzania Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anita Erskine, and that brings
hands together once again for the wonderful discussions that we have had so far. We nearly sacrificed the rest of the day for them because their interest was so high, we couldn't afford to let them go. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together once again for this particular session. Thank you very much, the ever dynamic and interesting. Thank you. And I must say that a lot of people want to see and hear a lot more from our women. And so even the AfCFTA podcast is requesting that all the women who took part in this particular session, there's going to be a continuation of your interview at the AfCFTA studio down there. Miss Elidora will be leading you down there for that continuation. And we thank you and plead that you participate. Thank you. Our next plenary session promoting investment in the automotive value chains in the AfCFTA framework. But before that takes off, and once the technical directors are putting the stage together, let me make my announcement again, please. At exactly 6:30, 2 locations. One, this premises, there's going to be transportation available to convey all of us to the location, the hotel where we'll be having the gala dinner this evening. All of us are to be here by 6:30 p.m. Regardless of where you will be, please try and make it here by 6:30 p.m. The other location the other location is going to be Ubumwe Hotel. So those of you who are accommodated at Ubumwe Hotel, there's going to be a transportation there to transport all of us to the allocated hotel for that particular dinner. Make it a point to join us. Don't miss out. The conversation is even going to be greater. Let me also seize the opportunity quickly for all of us to put our hands together for Dr. Daniel Macaulay before he leaves. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Daniel Macaulay. A big one. It's a special request from the women because he has made a promise to give them a very significant sum. Let's put our hands together once again for HerAfCFTA and Dr. Macaulay. All right. All right, shall we be seated, please, for the next plenary, please? Shall we be seated? Thank you. Pleasantries and conversations can take place outside the auditorium, but while we seek time to finish quickly and move on to the next important assignment, the rest of us in the auditorium, let's please be seated. All right, thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The next plenary, promoting investment in the automotive value chains in the AfCFTA framework. Moderator is Mr. Dave Kofi, Chief Executive Officer, African Association of Automotive Manufacturers. Let's put our hands together and welcome him, please. A big round of applause for him. Thank you.
hard act to follow, but we're going to give it our best shot. So the Deputy Chair of the AUC, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the Automotive Hour. I'm going to call up our panel. We have two panelists that will be online. So starting off, I welcome Martina Bina. She's the Chairperson and Managing Director of Volkswagen Group Africa. Martina. That's it, we need the music. I'd like to welcome Tarek Mossad. He's the Director, Planning Group and Business Strategy from Hyundai Motor Company, Middle East and Africa. Tarek. Then next I would like to welcome up Temba Kumalo. Temba's known to many here. He's the Principal Advisor of the AfCFTA Secretariat. Welcome, Temba. To welcome the next speaker who will be online. If we could get Gainmore up on the screen, Dr. Gainmore Zanamwe. Is it possible to show Gainmore? So Dr. Gainmore Zanamwe is the Director of Trade Facilitation and Investment Promotion from HerAfCFTA Bank. Welcome, Gainmore. And lastly, during the next 15 minutes, we'll be joined by Mike Whitfield. He's going to be in South Africa. He's the Managing Director of Stellantis Sub-Saharan Africa. So let's welcome Mike Whitfield. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity.
There we have Gainmore and Mike. Welcome. So I'd like to just start off by saying who is the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers. We're a private sector automotive association, and our mission is to industrialize and grow the automotive sector on the continent of Africa. And we do this by working with African governments to develop, refine, and implement automotive policies and ecosystems. These ecosystems will attract investment and unlock the economic potential of Africa. Our members vary from global OEMs to national assemblers, to component manufacturers, to startups, to financial institutions, and organizations that add value to the auto ecosystem. But just to reflect first on 2023, to give you some context, in Africa, 1.2 million new vehicles were produced and a similar amount was consumed. At the same time, between 3 and 5 million used vehicles are imported into Africa, and recently I have got data that says more than 3 million motorcycles are imported into Africa. Now, if we reflect against the India and what India's been has achieved, they have a similar population of 1.4 billion people. Their GDP per capita is slightly more, but not much more. And in 2023, India produced 5.8 million vehicles, of which they consumed 4 million passenger and 1 million commercial, and they produced 16 million motorcycles. They manufactured that. And they did that by introducing and implementing the right policy, automotive policy, and which included affordable mobility, which is key, as we will discuss. So in February 2023, and you'll hear more about this, that a continental automotive strategy was approved by the AfCFTA Council of Ministers. And in Cape Town last year, for this business forum, we discussed, as the panel, auto policy best practice and strategies. And today we've moved on a year, and we are discussing here the progress and successes and some of the challenges we have in realizing our vision and how we go about that. So let's get into the discussion, and maybe just move over here. Okay, I'm going to start with Martina. So Martina, recently there's been an announcement that you plan to explore manufacturing vehicles in Egypt, and we'd like you to share why Egypt and how this fits into your evolving manufacturing footprint across the continent. Also, you made a change to VW South Africa, change to VW Group Africa. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Dave, for the question. So let me quickly contextualize our Volkswagen endeavor in Africa. So for us as Volkswagen, and that's also reason for renaming into Volkswagen Group Africa, is that we really look into a business case Africa for Africa. So we are not looking, and those of you who follow the global news, Volkswagen has plenty of plants across the world, and also many in Europe. So we are not looking for Africa as an export destination to Europe or to elsewhere, but we are looking into an Africa for Africa business case. That's also why we've renamed ourselves Volkswagen Group Africa. And that's also why Egypt can play an important role for us in increasing our Africa footprint. So Egypt, first reason is Egypt has a significant domestic new car market already. Similar to, for example, South Africa. So that is an important factor, that you have a domestic market where you also can sell cars before you look into where can I export the cars to. So Egypt has a significant domestic market with a significant growth potential as well. And Egypt has put a policy framework into perspective, and not into perspective, into place, that enables a conducive business environment. So very important domestic market and policy certainty. And Egypt's automotive policy, which they have implemented, gazetted, is very compelling for us to look into business. Egypt, of course, has signed the AfCFTA and will, once ratified and implemented for automotive trade, also under the AfCFTA. In the automotive, and I think we get to that, rules of origin are still to be finalized, but Egypt already now has a lot of trade agreements and possibilities within Africa, with North Africa, with COMESA, so that also already kind of can accelerate, or what then will happen with the AfCFTA fully implemented. That's important for us as well. And Egypt is really looking into the automotive industry as on how can they enable business, how can they incentivize production in the country. Plus, last topic on Egypt, there is a very good supplier base already there, because with us as the automotive manufacturers, of course, comes a lot of supplier industry, or must come, and meaning there is a lot of capabilities, there is a lot of suppliers there, there is quality, there is standards adhered to, so Egypt is a very good place for us to look into as a next Africa footprint. By the way, followed then by some ideas we have in sub-Saharan Africa, with probably Kenya being our East Africa hub, but automotive policy in Kenya missing currently still, or under discussion, and also Ghana, who is on a very good way in terms of policy making for automotive policy. Just the last two clauses are still to be implemented.
Thanks, and it's that policy certainty which is absolutely critical to investment. Moving on to you, Tarek, from Hyundai, and we recently read about your investment announcement in Algeria, and that's a huge milestone for Hyundai, the group. It's your first significant investment in Africa. Maybe you want to just share with us why Algeria, and what's the way forward.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, everyone. Very proud being here in Biashara Africa, and happy to join this plenary discussion. So coming to your question about Algeria, yes, this news was revealed by the government in Algeria, but it's real. We are actively studying now the expansion of Hyundai footprint in Algeria. But this study is like constructive study so far, with two aspects. That's why we are very busy now in this study. It's not only about how to produce a car, because this is what we are doing in the daily basis. While on the other side, we are looking at how can we comply to the requirement of the localization, not only in the short term as of today, but for the mid and long term. This is a sustainable solution we always put, or the sustainable strategy we always talk about as a Hyundai Group. On the other side also, how can we contribute actively to the society based on our global vision, progress for humanity, so this is part of our footprint in any location. So now we talk about Algeria. Algeria is a great opportunity. This is how we see Algeria for several aspects. And also, if you ask my view, it's a great opportunity for the enablement of the African continent FTA. I will explain now, but let me just recall the history somehow of the automotive in Algeria. We know very well, like most of the African countries, huge importation, big burden on the trade balance and the economic system, then a hard stop for quite some time in Algeria. We understand the reason. Then the government came with clear requirements for the localization. 2 years ago, I guess it was announced, these requirements, in my view, is a strategic step for Algeria in the automotive sector. How can we establish the ecosystem somehow? Because yes, Algeria is well located in terms of the logistics. The demand in the market is quite big. Resources are there, but we need to make sure that the whole ecosystem can support this initiative. And this is really important one. That's why I'm saying that with this strategic step from the Algerian government, we as OEMs not just need to comply with the requirement, we need to help also this system to be realized. Looking at this, yes, OEMs has a role, the government has a clear intention, and also we need to come into the important point, which is the component manufacturers or the component manufacturing supply map or something. That's why I said there is clear opportunity for the African continent FTA to be implemented and enabled in Algeria. At the moment, within the requirements of the localization in Algeria, they are looking for the export in the midterm. Good. So they want to export cars, not only for the domestic demand. On the other side, if you look at the component manufacturing or the supply in Algeria, not up to speed to support this progressive localization requirements. That's why probably the support from the other African countries is required. Within the last meeting with the Minister of Industry in Algeria, he clearly requested Hyundai, please, let's work together also with the African continent FTA. How can we enable the mutual benefit between Algeria and the African countries? And I can see some clear initiatives, discussions with Tunisia country on how can they rely on the sourcing from Tunisia and also to be counted as a part of the local ratios. Of course, I'm not into these details, but this is what is happening at the moment. Why we don't expand this to more countries like Egypt, Central Africa, South Africa? Let's try to implement this, and of course it can be a discussion with the Secretarial Office of African Continent FTA.
Thanks, Tarek. I think it's the second example of Africa for Africa.
Yes.
And I was in Algiers 2 weeks ago. We had a very successful meeting with the private sector, who met the minister a few days ago, and there's going to be a joint roadmap with the development of the value chain in Algeria, which is going to need suppliers from Africa to support that. Temba, just moving on to you, and I covered it, that an automotive strategy was approved in February last year in Botswana. It had a number of parties that developed the strategy. Maybe you just want to share from the Secretariat's perspective how the implementation is going of that strategy and what structures are there to support it.
Thank you very much, Dave. One, two. Yeah, thank you very much, Dave. We appreciate the opportunity and greetings to the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission. I think firstly maybe is to appreciate the partnership that we have with the industry through the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers and other partners, especially Afreximbank. We engage a lot with other partners, including AFDB, who are interested in supporting this kind of work. Subsequent to the approval of the strategy, Secretary General obviously retabled the proposal that he had put on the table of the Council of Ministers of Trade to relook at the issues, as Martina says, that we are yet to conclude on rules of origin. But when you look at how we have been able to move the needle in as far as one adopting the chapter rule at 40% as an enabling a rule for trade and industrialization in the automotive sector in the continent, it was obviously that bigger step. You look at some of the tariff lines where we agreed on, whether is it the transport for passengers that are more than 108702 was agreed, and it's on the basis of that strategy, because an argument was being made to say, how can we be able to leverage on economies of scale provided by the AfCFTA to justify the investments which probably would not have been able to manage? And I'm happy that OEMs are continuously making these announcements, because they are in the context of ensuring that we could be able to take advantage of the AfCFTA. You have been through a process of engaging with some of the state parties in as far as reviewal or the development of new automotive policies that are in the context of that automotive strategy, which we believe is we're on the right track in as far as our endeavor to probably look at the sector that probably gives us most opportunities to be able to drive manufacturing in the continent. I think we have seen with some of the OEMs that are operating in the continent that is possible in as far as creation of decent jobs for Africans. The automotive sector gives us that kind of an opportunity. We have been able to obviously further to that engage with partners, Afreximbank and AAA, to pursue what are components manufacturing opportunities in the continent that can be able to integrate some of, let's say, economies that may not necessarily host full manufacturing plants, but they have got a role to play in the sector. And that components manufacturing study gave us those type of ideas. When you were mentioning that there's an opportunity for 5 million units of vehicles in the continent, let's say by 2035, the fact is not each and every country in the continent will host a plant, but there is an opportunity for those that are able to create their value proposition in as far as whatever it's competitive or competitive advantage, whether it's those that want to do tire manufacturing, but they will not necessarily host a plant, but they have an opportunity to can then be able to get involved, and which is why it is important, and I think Genmo will probably be able to talk to this, so that we can then be able to utilize the funding that was provided by the bank to pursue those opportunities, integrate those countries in the value chain in a manner that helps us to be able to create jobs. We have seen some of the examples. I mean, we talk assembly plants, you would probably have less than 100 people working in an assembly plant, but then you go to some of the economies, whereas in Botswana, where hiring houses are done, there's a capacity of 3,000 people employed. You go to the Kingdom of Lesotho, there are about 700 people working there for seat covers manufacturing. So that's what we think we have been able to do over the last year, to just try and build this business case so that we can then be able to form a great partnership with the industry that seeks to integrate countries in this value chain in a manner that does not leave anyone behind. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Temba.
Yeah.
And I fully support your message on collaboration. It's strong, and we really appreciate all the partners. VDA is not on the stage, but the German auto industry has been very supportive as we move forward too. And I think we hear that from the conversations that take place. And just to reiterate your point about not every country is going to make a vehicle, what is the role of countries in the value chain from minerals through to component and vehicle manufacture and distribution? So it's important we find those roles. So this is an inclusive process in concluding the rules of origin. We must be careful not to have We need a strong rule of origin to ensure industrialization and have inclusivity. That's key. So thank you. Mike, I want to move on to you. And Stellantis has announced a very significant investment in South Africa. And maybe just shed your light on why South Africa. And also, Stellantis is developing a very strong manufacturing footprint in Africa. Thanks, Mike.
Yep, thanks, Dave. And I think, first of all, good afternoon to everyone who is attending, both virtually and in person. And from a Stellantis point of view, we are well located from a manufacturing point of view in Africa. We have plants in Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt. And as Dave said, South Africa is very much next on the radar. And the question that you pose, why South Africa? I think it's covered in many aspects of the automotive strategy. First and foremost, a very well-established automotive industry. Secondly, a strong OEM presence in South Africa and a destination with new OEMs coming towards it. A very well-established automotive component manufacturing industry, as well as South Africa beginning to embark, we hope, going forward on the EV transition from a roadmap. And very importantly, which is, I think, a core part of all auto industry development in the African continent, is a very strong automotive incentive program, structured program that is very consistent. South Africa has international trade agreements, as we know, with the EU, USA, and SADC. And obviously, critical to any automotive OEM decision, as Martina was saying, is that the opportunity that the African continent offers for automotive, Dave, you mentioned 5 million, without doubt, it's the last frontier in automotive. And it's very important, I think, in this journey as Africa moves towards realizing that potential, that from a Africa country position, that they all participate in that value chain one way or the other. And if we don't utilize the benefits of the Continental Free Trade Agreement and automotive strategy within it, we will not capitalize on the opportunity that this 5 million TRV potentially offers. And then obviously the important factor is that in South Africa you have a very internationally connected trade network. And South Africa today is roughly 40% of the total Africa new vehicle market. But when we look forward to the number Dave was mentioning at 5 million, the real growth is going to come in the rest of Africa, particularly in sub-Sahara. We see a lot of opportunity to grow. And for us, our operations will be very much focused looking at not only supplying the South African market, but very importantly the African market and potentially the Middle East market as well. So if we look at all the points that were covered in the automotive strategy document, certainly I think South Africa ticks a lot of those boxes, and a very important part for us in our vision to become a very active player on the African continent as well. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. And auto policy, we've already mentioned, is absolutely key, and it's more than just incentives. It's a whole ecosystem that you actually are developing and implementing. And right now in Africa, we have 3 new policies going in, and they're going in Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Egypt as we speak. Other policies have been developed, ready, and they will be presented to parliaments for approval, both in Kenya and Nigeria. And many other countries are engaging with regards to their role in the value chain. So there's really a lot of activity now than there's ever been before. So it's an exciting space. And moving on to Gainmore, who's right in the action. AfCFTA has committed significant funds, $1 billion over 5 years, to the development of the industry from the mineral beneficiation right through to manufacture and distribution. And maybe, Gainmore, if you could just share with us the progress in utilization of these funds. It's a significant commitment and very important for this industry.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave, and greetings to everybody from the African Export-Import Bank, and it's always a pleasure to participate in this important discussion on automotive, because at AfCFTA, we believe that it is sectors like this, the automotive sector, that will actually help to catalyze industrialization in the continent, and we believe that we are on a good track. I look back several years ago when AfCFTA developed its own automotive strategy, working with AAM and UBU. I think we were always looking at the partnerships that we needed to drive this. We needed the partnership from industry, we needed the partnership from AfCFTA Secretariat. I'm happy to note that through this partnership, we've now managed to put in place a continental automotive strategy. Why is this important? Because this will actually make it easier for us to come in from a financing angle. And when we did an analysis of all the key challenges in the automotive industry, we agree with the issues that have been highlighted by the previous speakers. You need the policy to be right, and that was actually highlighted in our strategy as well as in the continental strategy. You also need a regional value chain approach to the development of the auto industry, and we've done some fantastic work in that area. We're working with AAM and AfCFTA Secretariat. And the other third piece, which was also missing, is the financing that is required now to support those value chains. And at AfCFTA, some of you may recall that we actually announced a global automotive facility of about 1 billion to support the automotive industry. And I'm glad that we've actually made progress in terms of trying to implement this facility. We've disbursed more than 100 million US dollars to support the automotive industry in Egypt through an on-lending arrangement with commercial banks in Egypt. And we are also now working with Ghana to actually provide probably between 100 million to 200 million through local banks to support the automotive industry. We are looking at the assembly, component manufacturing, which has been mentioned, which I think has a lot of potential. We are also looking at distributor financing, which is also critical, and there have been a lot of exciting discussions on vehicle asset financing. We are actually trying to look at innovative ways of partnering with local financial institutions, partnering with the OEMs to find a way of actually providing affordable financing that will actually help us to realize that dream of having 5 million vehicles by 2035. That can only happen if we actually have got access to cheap and affordable financing. At AfCFTA, we are willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that the continent has affordable financing, and we'll be expecting also the OEMs to play ball as well as the other partners at the local level. I think what is actually key from our experience based on the interactions we had with the industry, it will be easier for us to come in and finance the component manufacturers as long as they are linked to OEMs. We can easily come in and provide support. We can also support local financial institutions. We can on-lend to them and have an agreement that they should also be able to on-lend to their customers at affordable rates. And we are also discussing with other big DFIs to actually come up with a big facility in the long term that will provide patient capital in this space, both on the equity side as well as on the debt financing. And we are also working with the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa and other partners actually to support the development of the battery electric vehicle value chain in DRC and Zambia. AfCFTA has already committed significant resources, more than $1 million, to do the feasibility studies, and it has been going very well. The analysis that came out of that even shocked us. We actually noticed that DRC and Zambia will be very competitive in terms of actually producing not only precursors, but also they can even produce batteries. And the importance of the value chain approach is critical. We know DRC and Zambia are endowed with a number of minerals. I mean, all the way from 70% world cobalt reserves, lithium, etc. If you really look at the lithium-ion battery value chain, you will be essentially be moving from an industry that is about 11 billion if you just do the mining only. But if you move from mining now to metal processing, the value jumps to about 44 billion. Then if you move from there to precursor, you are now looking at about 371 billion. Then if you move to the manufacturing of electric vehicles, you are now looking at an industry that is valued at more than 46 trillion US dollars by year 2046. So there are massive opportunities, and the bank is ready to finance these kind of interventions. It will support also our green initiatives, and climate change will also be dealt with. So these are some of the financial support we've been providing. I think Temba mentioned the value chain study that we've just concluded working with AAAM and the AfCFTA Secretariat. There are enormous opportunities we see there, but I think we need to sit down with industry to see how best we can actually finance those small component manufacturers. It could be the guys who are trying to set up a tire manufacturing plant. It could be somebody trying to do some shock absorbers. So these are the small players that we need to support, and we need a partnership arrangement with OEMs for us to be able to actually provide cheap and affordable financing. There is more that we've done in terms of financing. Due to time, I will not go into it, but I understand there is also work that has gone on the development of policies at the national level. For example, the Nigeria policy on auto, we actually financed that, and many others, Cote d'Ivoire. So we are fully committed to continue working with the AfCFTA Secretariat, AAAM, all the OEMs to provide the financing that is needed. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Gaynmore, and finding solutions to the smaller investments and bringing people into mobility is key. And it's something that I know AfricBank and various players are working hard at. I want to move on to a slightly different topic now, Martina, and that is fuel. And this is a passion of yours, and you really brought it to the fore. Maybe just give us 2 minutes on fuel and the importance of fuel quality to the development of the AfCFTA.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up here. So it made it onto a panel now. I'm very happy. I've been very passionate about that. So it's a very technical topic, but fortunately for you in the audience, I'm also not a technical person, so I'll try to explain what this is about. In Africa, one thing, and that is something we'll subsequent probably to the AfCFTA need to address as industries, is that there is for many countries a lack of regulation in terms of emission standards, in terms of safety standards, in terms of roadworthiness standards, and so on and so forth. And if you really want to enable new car industry, you'll need to a certain extent standardize or regulate emission levels and so on and so forth. But beyond the regulation, which is probably a good thing in the future also when it comes then to electric vehicles, the fuel quality in Africa, it's not regulated anywhere, but the fuel quality in Africa in many countries is we call it bad fuel. High iron levels, high manganese levels, high sulfur levels, which leads to, in many countries, that you can't run modern engine technology. So you can't, for example, run engines with catalytic converters, which many countries already consider as being a standard, to reduce emissions. So it's and because of that, a strong plea of Volkswagen, but fortunately also others join us in that journey, is for the countries to import better fuel. To import better fuel, to clean the system in the countries, to clean the pipelines, to allow that better fuel to be not contaminated again than once being imported, and if you've got own refineries, to potentially invest in upgrading the refineries to be able to produce better fuel. What would that do? It would enable many of us manufacturers to come with more models, to come with engines. So Volkswagen, for example, hardly invest more money in, like, as we call it, bad fuel engines, because it really doesn't, there's not many countries left. But it would also definitely be a huge step towards reducing emissions. So instead of many of us waiting to immediately leapfrog into electric vehicles, which most likely also will not happen in Africa, given the capacity, the electricity capacity or the source of power, instead of leapfrogging immediately into electric, we could reduce emissions significantly by using better fuels and be enabling better engine technologies to come in the countries. Not only emissions to prevent climate change, but also, or not only CO2 emissions, but also NOx emissions. So it's mutual beneficial also for the country and the planet's health, if I can put it like that, to work towards this better fuel, and it would enable us as manufacturers or also as importers to bring better engines and better fuel. And I want to, because we are in Rwanda, I want to give the example of Rwanda, so of very focused political intervention. We have had the opportunity to meet His Excellency President Kagame last year, June, and we were tabling the issue of fuel quality in Rwanda, which was by then an EU3 emission, kind of comparing to EU3 emission, which is not great. And he took it upon himself and instructed the team in Rwanda to improve that. And not only half a year later, so beginning of this year, we were already able, or Rwanda installed a clean fuel depot, and now more and more petrol stations coming to the clean fuel party. Opening up, and there's a lot of traffic, as I was informed, in these clean fuel petrol stations. So if there's, as always, also in our industry, if there is a strong political will to make it happen, it can happen. And Rwanda was high speed, and we were able to immediately release 2 new models to Rwanda because of that. So that's really a cool story, and I can only encourage other countries to please support our journey with cleaner fuels.
Yeah. And there is an active working group within AAAM handling fuels and emissions, dealing with a number of countries. So this really has focus, because it's a limiting factor on many aspects. Jarek, moving on to you, I want to get your views on affordable mobility solutions. So if you could, in 3 minutes, share with us, your thoughts on that, because this is vital to industrialization.
Exactly. Thanks, Dave, for opening this topic. How to define the term affordability is very important. So in Hyundai, for example, though we have a wide range of mobility advanced solutions from air to ground, but we are always busy trying to capture what is the real need in each market, not just offering the same car here and there. So our engineers and market researchers are always busy to capture the market needs and how we customize our products. But also we need to be careful about something. Affordability doesn't mean cheap, it means the value and meeting the requirements of the market for the daily life. So we are always also busy how we balance our approach as a technological company leading in this era. So we need also to make sure keeping our customer up to speed with the global technology. So how to define the word affordability? As I said, this is a approach from Hyundai. On the other side, the common approach we all agree is the localization. So we need to localize products. The straightforward answer. On the other side also, it's not limited to the products, the service as well. Let me say it loudly, like for the customer, there is a bit of anxiety always visiting the official service centers. Why? Always expecting I will pay more and I don't know how much expensive it is. We need also to be realistic in our service offers. This is also important because the future is coming with more service and software in the cars and so on, more than products. So this is also another point I wanted to highlight. Otherwise, if we don't focus on the affordability, we will remain a dumping yard of 40% of the used cars, of the world used cars. And of course, there is a lot of effort thanks to the AAAM and the automotive leaders negotiating a lot of agreements to stop this flow. But all of us as OEMs need to focus on the affordability and fight the used car invasion. For a reason, it's not about the competitiveness of the used cars against the new cars. It's more about also the environmental factors. Those cars are coming without any compliance to the environmental requirements and so on. So it's really a serious topic.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to make a comment, Themba. At the last task force meeting, we proposed to extend the continental strategy to include motorcycles and micromobility. So we're looking at mobility solutions through from an affordability perspective, from four-wheelers right through. So it's a key aspect. Thank you for those interesting insights. Themba, the one aspect that's very important is we want to increase trade in Africa from 17% to over 50%. But we've got some challenges cross-border, and we've heard a number of them that have been raised. And you as a secretariat have got a specific working group or directive under Demita. Would you just share just what she's looking at with the team?
Unfortunately, or fortunately, she's here, and I don't want to misrepresent her. But the point is, in our prioritization of sectors, so we had agro-processing, autos, pharma, and we included transport and logistics for a very simple reason that other than the cost that we actually paying, it's also undermining our capacity to actually support productive sectors, and that is why we had to look at it as well. So the Secretariat, obviously, through the Directorate of Customs and Trade Facilitation, is to then look at the areas at which the Secretariat can be able to lead interventions, and one of those, obviously, being how we modernize customs procedures or processes. Because industry will continue to say the time that they spend at border crossings, it's money. And we should therefore be able to find ways of leveraging on modern technology to be able to make that simple. Whilst we continue to engage with our colleagues, let's say FDB and other partners to actually help us invest in trade enabling infrastructure that could be related to rail or roads, but that at areas where we are able to coordinate our partners and take a first leading role, we'll then be able to. So the colleagues and a number of partners are therefore, through that working group, ensuring that we can be able to firstly, looking at the corridors that we have prioritized as part of this pilot, so that it's North-South, Lobito corridor, Abidjan, Lagos corridor, so that we can then be able to, through those pilots, make a case on why it's important that our partners, Afrexim Bank had actually even supported the syndicated financing that helped Bay Bridge to modernize some of the processes that are there, and we think the more we invest in that, the more we build a business case on why we should therefore be able to pursue this work in a manner that kind of like gives confidence to the industry that a lot is being done to try and reduce the cost of communication. I mean, the cost of transport and logistics. There was a time I think we did a study a few years ago which looked at how much it costs to transport a car from South Africa to Ghana versus Europe. And it's costing 4 times more to transport that car from South Africa to Ghana. And the point is, unless we are able to help reduce that cost, we will continue to struggle to support intra-Africa trade. And it's even at the level of the components, because we are saying we should be able to leverage on accumulation rule provided for in the agreement to then drive this process of supporting components manufacturing that could then be traded to support the manufacturing hubs. And I think we should be able to at least make a positive impact through this type of initiatives and pilots, and as I said, engage with the colleagues who are involved in infrastructure, including out and EPAD, to help us drive this process of investments in trade enabling infrastructure in the continent. Yeah.
It's a very important initiative. We need efficient intra-Africa trade. So I really wish the team all the best. It's critical.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you.
Maybe if because I'm looking at time, there's an issue which Martina actually raised around the rules of origin. I think I do want to confirm that obviously even in between this the Council of Ministers meeting, Secretary General continues to engage with the industry, and with this last meeting having been, I think, on the 23rd of August, just to try to find ways of supporting both obviously the state parties and industry to engage in a manner that allows us to probably utilize the upcoming meeting on the 9th and 10th of November of the Council of Ministers of Trade to try and finalize or conclude on rules of origin negotiations, because I think even the point that was being made by Gainmore, our ability to utilize that package also lies on us being able to conclude on those rules of origin that in a way should be able to help us enable industrialization, regional value chains in the continent. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to just ask Mike to reflect on the next issue, and that is ultimately the vision is that used vehicles come from vehicles manufactured in Africa. Now, there's a transition required there because it's a big business to many stakeholders, but we just need to do it sensibly and bring people into a new value chain while still having affordable vehicles. And it's a long-term vision, but it's key to get there. So Mike, what do you think is important that we do to enable that transition effectively? Maybe just want to reflect on the top two or three issues.
Dave, I think very important. I think if we look at it right now, today, you look at the overall market, the overall Africa market, the 3 countries that make up 70% of the market, which is Egypt, Morocco, South Africa, have a very strong order policy in place that regulates, in fact bans used vehicles. And they've been able to do that because they've created their own ecosystem within those countries for used vehicles. So the phasing out of used vehicles is critical to achieve that ecosystem of the TRB of 5 million, but very importantly, and points were made relative to the need from an environmental point of view, etc. But probably the most important thing is we must remember that a large number of those used vehicles are also the answer to affordable mobility. So very important that we also address in this move towards creating this ecosystem for automotive in Africa, that we also address the issue of affordability. And that affordability and that mobility, affordable mobility does range, as you said, from 2-wheelers all the way up. So the only way that you're going to completely eliminate the volume of used vehicles coming into the market is going to be through regulation in country specific, the ability to create affordable solutions for people to own mobility, mechanisms of mobility, whether it's 2-wheeler, 4-wheeler, or whatever, and that we actually create the ecosystem within each individual country. So if one looks at it, it's no good trying to say to create a new vehicle market in the industry and we allow it to be flooded with used. We need the policy and we need to ensure that we can create access to people to have the affordable mobility to replace the current used vehicles that are coming in.
It's a key issue. It's coming up a number of times. Thank you, Mike. We are certainly running out of time, but again, I want to give you a chance. I was going to ask you about a payment and settlement system, but I've got a lot of coverage today here. So I'm going to move on from that and give you 2 minutes to talk about the IATF. It's important from an automotive perspective, but from an African perspective. Tell us what you have in store, please.
Thank you very much, Dave. I think I want to start by applauding the partnership that we have with AAM and the AfCFTA Secretariat that actually enabled us to launch the Africa Automotive Show at IATF. And some of you are fully aware that we run the IATF every 2 years. It's a biannual event. The next edition is taking place in Algeria from 4 to 10 September in 2025. We have had fantastic results from the previous IATF editions.
We lost Gain more.
And all the key players. I think Algeria is a country that offers enormous opportunities. You heard from Hyundai, they want now to open up to the rest of Africa and facilitate intra-African trade under the AfCFTA, building on the rules of origin that we've been negotiating, building on an environment that is established by the AfCFTA. So IATF, in short, is actually a vehicle that we're going to use to bridge the gap in terms of market information. It is a vehicle that we'll use to support the implementation of the AfCFTA. It's actually the marketplace for the AfCFTA. So we look forward to seeing all of you. We'll have a fantastic automotive show, which consists of a conference. There'll be exhibitions. So OEMs, component manufacturers can take stands or pavilions, and then there will be excellent opportunities for B2B, B2G engagements, and we look forward to seeing all of you in Algeria. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gaimo. So we're really coming to the end, but I'm going to give the opportunity for 2 questions. Please, if there's any hands up. Question there. You got a microphone? There's a question there.
Dave, thank you very much for articulate coordination. But something is baffling me. None of these manufacturers consider the issue of gas flaring by countries like Nigeria and Gabon that has the capacity to produce a lot of gas, and are talking about CNG vehicles that utilize CNG instead of PMS. That has dual advantage. In the first place, using CNG, you save more money than using PMS. And it addresses the climate factor in a way, if you know it. It addresses the climate factor because it does not have emission like the PMS does. And some countries in the Middle East too are looking at that direction. But it's like all the discussants are focused on electric vehicles and nothing more. I don't know if they have anything like producing CNG vehicles in their long plan. Thank you very much.
I can only answer on behalf of Volkswagen. We had CNG in the past, and we will not get back to CNG in the future. So the one thing is we run our combustion engines, and the next, like when it really comes to future technology in the passenger car space, that's battery electric vehicles. We have to focus our investment, and that is focused on the future in terms of battery electric vehicles, and on the present in terms of running the combustion engine. So there will be no CNG from Volkswagen.
I've experienced this question in a number of countries where there's plenty CNG, and I believe that in a country one can convert, but I don't see mass production in CNG for export.
No, thanks. I just wanted to ask and to get some clarity from what I'm hearing. I think the point was made by Martine, and I think she made a good point, that Africa's ability to transition to electric vehicles is going to be constrained by the availability of electric energy, and therefore it means it's not going to happen at the rate and pace that it's going to happen in the global north. I don't know whether we got enough understanding of that in all the climate change discussions, but I think it's a very important point. Does this mean that there is now a change in investment strategy by the OEMs? Because a number of countries, I know South Africa, a lot of the production is for export into Europe and other places. That has to be, after 2035, it has to be electric vehicles or new energy vehicles. But you're saying that Africa will be using non-new energy vehicles for a longer period of time. And are the investments now then being produced for the African market, and we're going to be having petrol-driven vehicles, more efficient in terms of fuel and all of that, for a longer period of time? And if that is the case, what is the sort of ballpark year? We know very well what it is for Europe, 2035, but what is it for, what is the sort of general vision for Africa? How long would that transition take? How long is there going to be a continuation of production of petrol-driven vehicles on the African continent? Because it strikes me that there's a huge opportunity, because a number of the global north countries won't be producing those anymore. So that's my question. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for the question. This is a very important one, because this is maybe most of the OEMs now are busy trying to answer this question. So yes, the green energy or the electric vehicles and the other solutions were already adapted in other markets, and we need to learn from this example. Now we see globally a declining in the electric vehicle sales, for example. Then we need to ask ourselves very important question. What is the right solution for the future? Is it electric vehicles? Is it hybrid again? And which type of hybrid is it? Or other energy solution like hydrogen? Or still we need to keep the ICE balance into the equation? So at the moment, I guess everyone is busy on that with several solutions on the table. And I see for Africa, it's good. We learn from the other regions' practice, and we just implement the right equation.
I kind of agree to your inherent judgment. So I see Africa, not fully, but the majority, no. Why I've contextualized in the beginning, for me it's Africa. For Africa is that my plants in Africa are not geared up for European production beyond 2035 anymore. So that's why I don't get an electric vehicle by accident, because I'm exporting to Europe, and then I can also sell it in any domestic or in any African market. So Africa for me means we'll really continue for long with a high amount of combustion engine vehicles, probably also combustion engine vehicles with hybrid technology, which still is a combustion engine vehicle. My take is minimum until 2040. In our company, we are in a similar situation with Latin America, where the transition is also not going as quickly as it is supposed to go in Europe. So Latin America is also a good development partner in terms of models, combustion engine-based and engines. Same India, where you see, I think, both moving quickly. So India moving faster into EVs, but also having a huge amount of combustion engines still to come. So I'll see like a global South partnership in terms of combustion engine plus hybrid technology for the future. There is and I like that example because if I would for one day replace my South African Volkswagen fleet with electric vehicles, if they were available, I would increase emissions by approximately 30%. Because we have highly efficient combustion engines, or sometimes with hybrids, and now you move to a zero-emission battery electric vehicle, fine, but then you have got 85% source of power is coal. So if it's really about protecting climate change, then battery electric vehicles, large scale, quickly in Africa is not the right thing because you've got many countries like that. Plus, you don't have sufficient electricity supply. So if it's really about reducing the CO2 emissions and reducing the effect of climate change, then join us in the fuel journey, in the fuel quality journey to bring good combustion engine technology, plus enable hybrid technology in as many countries as possible, because that really brings down CO2 emissions, larger scale. And we will have niches for electric vehicles, by the way. For example, Mauritius has an EV policy, fantastic. Cape Verde has an electric vehicle policy. Kenya is thinking of an electric vehicle policy. Ethiopia has one. But there's many who don't, and many who have still a lot of coal to be burned for the electricity. So a holistic approach to me is hybrid plus ICE with good fuel and efficient engines.
Chairman?
Thanks, David. I think just a quick one, just to mention that the Council of Ministers mandated what we call Automotive Task Force, which is responsible for the implementation of the strategy to consider a policy brief on aspects of new energy vehicles. So new energy vehicles, because we would want to remain technology neutral on the discussions. Where there's potential investment of whatever, we would be able to support it. But I think what we all agree on is that Africa should not be a dumping ground for ICEs beyond 2035. And whatever we do now would also be able to ensure that come that time we are actually ready to be able to move with the rest of the world, but that we should do anything possible to be able to ensure that we don't become that dumping ground of ICE cars that will probably be banned wherever across the globe. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Mike, any comment from an OEM perspective?
I think both Martina and all the participants have summarized it very well, but I think one point that Temba makes, we must be very careful that we also don't become a dumping ground for old technology, electric vehicles, as technology moves forward. And secondly, the other key element is that the definition of new energy vehicles, as everyone said, is not necessarily just BEV, but there's a journey towards, and Africa can play a significant contribution and utilization of the technologies such as hybrid and plug-in hybrid as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And certain countries have got natural resources, others don't. So I think you'll see a powertrain transition at different paces across different segments. And I'm really encouraged in East Africa is leading the two-wheeler electric. Some really incredible or clever models of battery swapping and I think there's a big opportunity there to go for it in public transport. So you'll see a different pace of transition. Right, I got given a bit of extension of time. Is there one more question before I wrap up?
There's one, Mike.
Yeah. We got to that one. Any of these?
Thank you very much for the great conversation. It was very interesting. My question is, well, in short, I want to have the conclusion at this point in your, well, maybe the panelists' personal perspective, how the AfCFTA will change the supply chain of the, well, the automobile supply chain in African continent. If you can just summarize it in one word or one sentence. Maybe it would be a complicated one.
I'm going to ask Martina that one because I see it from a scale perspective and being able to maybe localize product we weren't going to localize before. Do you want to talk about the whole value chain?
Yeah, so one aspect I think Themba has mentioned, the supply and the entire value chain is a huge opportunity also for mapping out the AfCFTA, because not every country, Volkswagen will not build 54 plants in Africa. That might be a disappointment now, but we'll need to find other.
Madame, c'est la première fois de ma vie que je suis devant un ordinateur en train de savoir quelque chose ou me dire de faire sinon. On est concentré comme ça. Je suis en train d'apprendre.
D'ailleurs, il y a combien de vues?
Hein?
Il y a déjà 100. Non, même si là, par contre, quand tu fais le direct, il y a même...
Commence à comprendre. Je suis un bon élève, je comprends vite. Je remonte du ñu wax ni dootuma ko waxaat. Léegi xam naa fu may wàccee fu may yéegee. Xam naa léegi fu may wàccee fu may yéegee. Wala ñu fa nga tàggatoo ko ba saisir ko doo ko mën a def. léegi su ma bëggee adhéré amaat bi fan laay dugg.
Waaw.
professeur. non yow da ngay toog toog ma doon expliqué ma yow bu ma bëggee adhéré.
son bi ñuy wax dafa mel ni day dugg si direct bi moom laay vérifier nii. Moom laa bëgg a vérifier.
Cote d'Ivoire is implementing a commercial vehicle policy today. Ghana is implementing a light vehicle policy. I just got a message before I got on the stage that Ghana is asking about this because the Cote d'Ivoire government's going to visit them. That's a good thing. You know, the discussion is going, and we've really got to think about this collaboration, and it makes a huge difference, obviously then rolling up into the AfCFTA. But if you just look at what is going to drive demand, vehicle demand, mobility demand, two-wheeler demand, that will enable the value chains to be developed. The first is the effective implementation of the AfCFTA, and within that, the Continental Automotive Strategy. I've mentioned a number of countries that are rolling out, others are considering. There's so much activity and together that will bring serious demand. But the other topic that's touched on is mineral transformation. You know, I'll give you an example on copper today. Victoria's working on a project now, is that all wire harnesses made in Africa, and there's 120,000 tons of copper used in wire that's in harness manufacture today. And a lot of it's up in North Africa because it actually ships across the Med. All that copper is imported into Africa in wire form. Meanwhile, we've got all the raw materials, but we don't transform it. No one's transforming it to a pure enough stage to enable the rod to be drawn from the rod made in Africa. We're dealing with that. But you also have the electric vehicle battery beneficiation opportunity. That's a huge opportunity for Africa. And lastly, what we've been speaking about for a while, you know, is the emerging middle class, urbanization. 2050, population will double in Africa. That will create demand. So we really are sitting on the last frontier in automotive. You know, there's a massive opportunity in Africa. We've shared some of the numbers today, but this won't happen by chance. I loved the words yesterday, fortune favors the brave, which came up there. We need to be deliberate and work and collaborate as the private and the public sector together. We need strong leadership here. We need a strong rule of origin, otherwise we're not going to industrialize. And this really is going to take good leadership, and the momentum is picking up. So there's a huge opportunity in automotive. We need inclusivity, and it's a great journey to be on. So thank you very much to the panelists for joining here and the opportunity to discuss this, and we'd welcome any questions offline or tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together once again for the session. Thank you, our moderator. Thank you, the panelists. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the location for the dinner gala, once more, is Intari Conference Center. Those of you who would want to go by yourselves without joining the bus that we're going with. Intari Conference Center, INTARE Conference Center. You may want to go by yourself. Otherwise, at 6:30, please go change up. At 6:30, we all meet here, Kigali Convention Center or Mbumwe Hotel. Yes, please, outside. We all converge there. We join the bus and we go together. Thank you.
Emerson's replacement, though one of the world's best dead ball exponents, Juninho Pernambucano, and striker Adriano, who scored on this ground in the final of the Confederations Cup against Argentina just 12 months ago, also sustained a knock in the win over Ghana. So Gilberto Silva, he steps up from the substitutes bench as well. With our referee from Spain, Luis Medina Cantalejo. He's so far had charge of Germany against Poland, Holland against Argentina, and Italy against Australia. And he's only seen 2 goals in those 3 games, the referee. I hope he sees a few more tonight. No changes for the French. Raymond Domenech leaves well alone in the wake of his side, rediscovering its appetite for victory in the last 2 matches. Thierry Henry is the only out-and-out striker, so Florent Malouda and Franck Ribéry have important roles. They will both supply width to the attack and hopefully ammunition. We look at Carlos Alberto Pereira, who never played the game professionally, and Raymond Domenech, who certainly did. He was a gritty player for Olympique Lyonnais. The yellow cards going into the game for Brazil, Juan, who is a starter, and Adriano, who is a substitute. And for France, Patrick Vieira, Zinedine Zidane and Frank Ribéry. And I mention that because today